I guess in Australia where you grew up, they end questions earlier than usual.
Australia.
Didn't you grow up in Australia?
No, in London.
Oh, England. It was a joke. And it's good to have fun too. People like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do that.
Right. Okay.
So, excellent to be back for the full season. Two great things. That's the first. The second thing, it's great to have Mark here as well, just giving a bit of exposition on what he spoke about. And also, we'd just like to encourage you to get connected, get involved with your groups, look forward to coming together and actually praying for each other, but also praying for your neighborhoods as well as. So let's dive in.
Scott, I'm excited that you're doing this, brother. I'm glad you're part of the staff. David is a great leader and a great thinker. I look forward to your part in all this. So thanks for doing
Excellent.
this.
Good.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the first question, Mark.
Yeah.
So we're talking about thankful and being thankful and what it means to be thankful. Why is it so important?
So being thankful, super important. I think of the parable, I think it's in the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus talks about someone who's been forgiven a lot.
Yep.
And how through their life they're so much more kind of sensitive to the goodness of God because they're like, I had to be forgiven all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Versus people who are forgiven less. And he's like, the person who's forgiven more is always going to be far more kind of in tune with who God is and what he's done and how, all of that. So I think that's part of it. There's kind of a humility that we arrive at. The more we're very consciously thankful all the time. This came into my life because God brought it. This came into my life, and saying it, talking about it. This didn't come from me. I'm not a self-made person. So I think that ability to constantly be tapped into that creates a kind of humility that ultimately people are going to go, why does this girl constantly give credit where, not to themselves, but to God. Even in Good to Great, that business book by Jim Collins. Have you heard of that before? So Good to Great, one of the, most famous business books in the world. He talks about the first chapter, level 5 leader. And he says a level 5 leader, the first thing about a level 5 leader, talking about people who run companies and biggest companies in the world, most successful, influential companies, says the thing about a level 5 leader is humility. Even at a business level, the kind of humility that level 5 leaders have. And usually, he said, it's actually fascinating. He said it surprised everybody when we started researching, because what they said was they would go to all these Fortune 500 company leaders and they would say, why are you successful? And so often what they would say is this: luck.
What?
Luck.
Serious?
Yep. They would say, you know what? I have a great team. I got lucky. I was in the right time at the right place. It's not really my doing. It's these people who surround, it's this guy did this. And constantly there was over and over and over again, the really high level leaders, there was a kind of humility that said, this is bigger than me.
Right.
And that's what started to draw. And so being thankful, being totally consciously aware at all times that this is not from you. Any goodness in your life needs to be something that you're thankful for, something bigger than you, I think drives a kind of humility that then attracts people towards you. And then of course you have this opportunity to kind of witness, turn that and pivot that into a witness for Jesus. So I think it's all kind of connected.
Okay, so why don't we just take a few moments as the group and just think about that. Think about being thankful and how we can apply that to our lives. And also just think about humility as well. Great. So, the next thing we'd like to dive into, Mark, is the whole idea of grace.
Yeah.
And how grace is a gift from God to us through his son Jesus. Mm-hmm. And thinking about grace, how we can focus more easier on the kind of gift than we can actually the giver.
Right.
So what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think people constantly, even in our prayer life, we jump right to asking for stuff, right? Versus like just going, God, you're good. Thank you. We kind of go, hey, thanks, Lord. Anyways, so here's what I need. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'd like. Here's what I'd like. So I think that kind of flows out of a theology of elevating gift above giver. And of course, the prosperity gospel does this a lot, where it's like, there's that classic great YouTube thing from John Piper where he talks about the corruption of Christianity going to these third world countries.
Right.
And they go into these villages in Africa and they say, they go in with their Mercedes and their nice rings and their nice clothes and they say, and the people look and they say, did Jesus give you that? Well, I'll take Jesus, you know. Did Jesus, you know, and if you take Jesus, you know, he says classically, if you take Jesus, your pigs won't die and your women won't have miscarriages and there'll be rings on your fingers and clothes on your back. And, you know, and he says, that's coming out of America. Like or Western world is taking this gospel to the third world. And the reason that they're then believing in Jesus is to get stuff.
Right.
Give me the result. But there's a challenge in that is in that moment when you're selling Christianity as you get this material blessing out of it, you're selling gift above giver, because really what you should be telling people is you get God. In the end, that is what you get. So when your life falls apart, when you face a death in your family, when you face that diagnosis and you're only in your 30s, when you lose all your money, it's not because God promised you that none of those things would happen. And if you just take him, you know, our classic line, God doesn't promise you you're not going to die. It's that you're safe in dying. It's that you get him, you know, and that's the goal. That's the gift. And so we constantly wrestle in our life. Am I going after the giver, or am I going after the gift? Am I constantly praying for the gift? Am I constantly pursuing the gift, the things? Or am I satisfied with, man, I get him, and if I got nothing else, like I've given that image before where we constantly pitch heaven as like this, you're going to see your grandma again. So you should believe it, you know, it's like, oh, good, I get to go to the afterlife and I get to eat food and I get to hang out with my grandma. But it's like, what if all you got was God? Would that be enough? Do you actually, like, you get Jesus face to face? That's what heaven is,
amazing.
Right? Rather than I get to see Aunt Judy or whatever. Which is great, obviously, too. So, anyway, so it's kind of that shifting up, you know, God is the gospel idea. That's actually the win. So, anyways, coming back to that point, you know, Paul in Ephesians 2 talks about, you know, it's given by grace. You didn't earn it. So that you never boast in it. It was given to you by God. It is a gift, salvation itself. So you'll never go, this was me. You know, and that's the beauty of it. So
okay, so let's catch that as a group. Just think it through. Think about the difference between gift and giver, and how we should focus on what God has given us in Jesus. And like Mark mentioned, you know, this isn't just a now thing. This is for eternity, and that's the bigness of it. But also it's talking about God's love for us. So let's just cover that as a group for a few minutes. Just diving back in to question 3, and just thinking about the Corinthians and their kind of attitude towards knowledge, how they almost worshipped it, and yet their actual lives, conversely, were really immoral. Why is it so important that love is more superior to knowledge?
I think it takes 13 chapters to kind of build up to that, and it feels weak to us because knowledge feels so much, you know, funner and cooler than love, right? But I think that's kind of his point. He's subverting everything they worship. They worship knowledge and intelligence, not loving your neighbor or loving the people around you, which is kind of what we do too. And so he wants to say, look, if you don't actually love, you know, if you look to the, you know, hey, Jesus, what are the most important things? Love God, love your neighbor. He doesn't say, you know, be really smart and intelligent about your neighbor. Because that's easy. It's actually easier for me, the way I'm wired, to read a book about my neighbor, right? And to study his behavioral psychology than it is for me to love him and bring him something when I hear him yelling at his wife and like go, hey, what's going on? I want to melt your heart. I want to, you know, do something for you because that's time and that's it. You know, it's easier for us to write a check than it is to like go down and serve on the Lower East Side all these people who are, you know, dying every day from overdoses or whatever. It's easier to kind of do these gnosis things, knowledge things, study them. But to go down and like hang with them.
So that's more of a
It's
sacrifice.
hard. It's harder. It was way harder. It would have been easier for Jesus to write a paper from heaven on humankind than to enter in and become one of us in all of our, you know, disaster and being hungry and cold and whatever. So that's love. It's kind of this it takes the knowledge and it makes it real. It makes it tangible. It puts it into real life. And that's why Paul's saying that's what's going to show the world, you know, that God is real. You know, that sense of love. So anyway, so I think that's why it's more important. We kind of build this whole Christian culture on knowledge and ideas and doctrine, and it's not, as one writer says, you need doctrine that dances you need doctrine that actually flows down into the world in action and rhythm and pattern. And that's why Paul's going, you can't create this dichotomy between the two. So,
Okay.
so let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go for
When
it.
have you felt that in your life?
Well, that love.
Love versus this person just studied me. They just know about me.
Well, I think I've got friends that are around the world. I think one thing that the kingdom gives you is that bigger family.
Yeah.
And for someone just to pick the phone up, our daughter was premature. She weighed £1.11 and she was born at 25 weeks. And as a young parent, that was a bit of a freak.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I knew, that friends would come to us, and some of those friends were Christians.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are just people that we've known, but many were. Mm-hmm. And we just experienced that love, God's love, and it's tangible.
Sure.
And it's real.
Wow.
It's just coming to us in that time and just carrying us through it.
Yeah.
And so you talked about tough situations. That was one for us.
Right.
And God just stepped in and did it.
So what did they do?
What did they do?
You know, they literally came physically to you and cooked for you and hung out for you? Like, what did they do?
Yeah, some people did that, you're right. People that were close by, they brought food over, and for 3 months they looked after us. I slept on one of my friend's floors up in London, because I was on the edge of London, going up there, and she was at King's College Hospital. So they're just practical needs that were met.
Yeah.
And also, people were just worried about us psychologically, just how we feel mentally with stuff. And so just an arm round, how you doing? Making that phone call, checking up on us, all of that, as a family,
right? And that's better, more powerful to you than just knowing people are thinking about you.
Yeah.
When they're out and about in their life, it's like thinking about you. It's like, okay, good. What have you done for me lately? As thinking about you. What does that mean? Great, thank you. Why don't you do something? Make a meal. Give me some money. Help me get through life. Care for me. Let's go for coffee. Lean into me. That's kind of that incarnational model versus God just going, hey, thinking about you guys. Hopefully this salvation thing works out. Enters into it. And so that's why I think Paul's saying that. Okay. It's the harder thing. To love is the harder thing.
Okay. So let's just gather that as a group again. And just think about, how we love and how we can love more. And maybe not just love each other as a group, which is great, but also how we can just broaden that out into the community and our neighbours around us and just serve them as well as. Hi guys, my name is David Adkins. I'm the new Community Director of Village Church. Just want to say how fantastic it is to be starting this new launch for the fall. We really hope that you enjoy your time in community groups. That's the way we meet together, enjoy each other's company, and also just think about praying and reaching out to our neighbourhoods. So thanks.